Hey guys, welcome back to Pristine's Reads. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Fairest Beauty, Book 3 in the Hagenheim series by Melanie Dickerson. The reason I'm not reviewing this series in order is as the second book is still on its way to my house from Amazon, as I ordered this one from Indigo. So, that being said, let's get straight to it. This is the super spoiler version. For no spoilers, please check out my no spoiler video. So now I'm going to give you the overall summary of this book. So The Fairest Beauty is set in Hagenheim in medieval Germany in the Holy Roman Empire. This is all fictional, of course. This is a retelling of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, if it wasn't already obvious from the cover. I love the covers of her books, by the way. But, so this retelling follows the second oldest son of Duke and Duchess Gerstenberg, their son Gabehart, or Gabe, as he is called. So Gabe is a flighty, headstrong young man that really has not many skills in life except archery and flirting with girls. He is in his older brother Valten's shadow, as his brother is this fearsome warrior and a knight, and he jousts in a lot of crazy tournaments and stuff. But Gabe really has no desire for the warrior's life. So one day, an old servant comes to the castle claiming that Sophia Breitenbach, or the Duke of Baldwin's daughter, or Valten's betrothed, is still alive and is being held in Hohendorf Castle, where the evil Duchess Ermengarde rules. And Hohendorf Castle is a 7-day ride from Hagenheim. So the old servant tells Gabe and the Duke and Duchess that Sophia, as she is called, is in great danger from the Duchess, and she has no idea who she is, and that the Duchess is just keeping her as a scullery maid because she does not want anyone to find out that she faked Sophie's death, as Sophie was presumed dead at 2 years old. So the old servant urges them to save her as quickly as possible, and then dies because she walked all the way from Hohendorf to Hagenheim, and she suffered extreme fever and sickness. So the Gerstenberg family decides that Valten should be the one to go rescue Sophie, as they are betrothed after all. But Valten had broken his leg in a tournament a week earlier, so they decide to wait and hold off until Valten is well. But Gabe decides that he would like to go and rescue Sophie instead, and defies his parents and rides to Hohendorf by himself. So Gabe really wants to rescue Sophie because he thinks it'll be the first great thing he has done. After all, he has no other skills except archery and flirting with girls, whereas Valten has all these long lists of accomplishments. So it starts out as kind of a way to prove himself, but it turns into a much more dangerous mission far more quickly than he thinks. So he arrives at Hohendorf, and under the guise of a traveling pilgrim that also sings and plays the lute, he discovers that Sophie in fact does serve at Hohendorf Castle, and he receives proof of her identity from an old servant that served when Duke Baldwin was still alive. So, unfortunately, Gabe is found out by the Duchess and thrown to the dungeon. But meanwhile, the Duchess enlists one of her huntsmen to take Sophie into the woods, kill her, and bring the Duchess back Sophie's heart, as the Duchess, again, has this whole thing of wanting to be the fairest of them all, and Sophie is clearly more beautiful than her. So, but the huntsman is unfortunately unable to kill Sophie and leaves her tied up to a tree. So he runs back to the castle and releases Gabe from the dungeon, gives Gabe a horse and some provisions, and lets Gabe go rescue Sophie. So Gabe takes Sophie into the woods and tries to bring her back towards Hagenheim, but the Duchess is sending a bunch of huntsmen after them to try and kill them both. So they decide to ride to the Cottage of the Seven to wait until they can receive reinforcements to get back to Hagenheim safely. The Cottage of the Seven is a place where these 7 men reside. They are not all dwarfs, although one of them is. They are men that are outcast from society because of whether it's diseases, scars, different things that made them socially unacceptable. They are all good-hearted and kind, however, and they help Sophie and Gabe recover from the wounds they have received along the way. So Gabe and Sophie realize that they have both fallen in love during their escape from the Duchess's castle, but they both know that Sophie is rightfully Valton's and that they have no right to any relationship between them whatsoever. And so it's really tough for them as they try and battle their feelings for each other, and Gabe eventually decides that he wants to break his betrothal, as Gabe is also betrothed to another young woman, and also break Sophie and Valton's betrothal. He decides that as long as he can convince the parents of the girl he is betrothed to break their betrothal, and also convince Valton to break his betrothal to Sophie, as they've never seen each other in their life, then he thinks everything will be okay. However, he discovers that Sophie's father is still alive, Duke Baldwin, and Duke Baldwin is staying under the cover of a monk at a nearby monastery. So Gabe visits Duke Baldwin, and after a long interrogation from him, Duke Baldwin decides that Gabe's motives are pure, and he gives consent for Sophie's end of the betrothal to be broken. So Gabe is elated and runs back to the cottage, but the Duchess Ermengarde has finally found Sophie, and the Duchess has a poisoned apple, which she tries to give to Sophie under the disguise of her being an old woman, and Sophie's compassionate heart lets the woman in, but she finds out at the last second that Duchess Ermengarde is actually the old woman, and refuses to eat the poisoned apple, and the Duchess tries to stab her with a knife, but, okay, this is the wonderful twist that I so loved. Sophie had been wearing this wooden cross necklace from the time she was very young, and the cross took the knife for her instead of allowing it to penetrate her chest. So, of course, Sophie was unconscious after the Duchess stabbed her, but I so loved that twist because it wonderfully illustrates how the cross can take our sin and the blows that Satan tries to throw at us. So the Duchess unfortunately met her end in the river as she drowned, but Sophie was alive and escaped unscathed. So eventually they make their way back to Hagenheim, and Valton gives his consent for Sophie's betrothal to him to be broken, as he says he could never marry a woman who loved his brother. And Gabe receives a letter from the parents of the girl he was betrothed to, as the girl has married someone else, and Gabe is therefore released from the betrothal. So they had this wonderful happily ever after in which they got married, and it was so beautiful. I loved it so much. So now I'm going to give you the morals of this book. First up is Christian beliefs / other worldviews. Again, this is a book set in medieval Germany in the Holy Roman Empire, so there is definitely some Catholic influences in there, but I found all the doctrine to be very sound, and I didn't find anything theologically wrong with them. I also love how Gabe and Sophie both asked guidance from God for their relationship, which is how it should be in real life, and how they both thanked him for his goodness to them after he brought them together in the end. There are no other prominent worldviews displayed in this book. Duchess Ermengarde did dabble in magic and poison, as she poisoned the apple meant for Sophie. But again, I so loved that twist. It was wonderful, and I think Melanie Dickerson did a great job with that. As for foul language, Gabe thinks the D word on page 271 in reference to something another character said, but otherwise there was nothing else of concern that I found. As for violence, again, this book is not centered around major battles, but the only violence I found was that when the Duchess's huntsman tried to kill Sophie, and when the other huntsmen tried to chase them down, and when Sophie and Gabe received a few wounds each. But otherwise, there was nothing completely bloody or gory. As for romance, again, this book is a clean romance, so there's nothing inappropriate in here. Of course, Gabe and Sophie shared a few kisses, but again, nothing inappropriate. It was all clean and good. As for alcohol, there is reference to a servant and a huntsman getting drunk in one of the woods. There's reference to a servant and a huntsman getting drunk in the woods, but we aren't given any more detail other than that. As for my rating and recommended age level, I'm proud again to rate this 4.5 stars. Again, I so loved this. I can't wait to read and review the rest of Melanie Dickerson's books. And yeah, I'd highly recommend checking out the rest of her series. And again, my recommended age level is 13 to 14 plus, as of the sort of higher, more mature content. But again, this was a really great, clean romance to read. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Bye!